Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Dev with Excel. Alright, so in this video we shall be solving exercises on part 0, right? That's part 0 of the full stack open. Alright, so starting with exercise 1, we can see that here from exercise 0.1, 0.2 and then up to 0.3 we are expected to read the tutorial whose links are given here, right? So we are expected to have a personal review and study, right, using these links given. All right, so our exercise is going to begin from 0.4 down to 0.6, right? Okay, now let's have a look at exercise 0.4. It's titled New Note Diagram. So it says in this section, loading a page containing JavaScript review. That's this page here. Let's check it out. All right, so that's it. So it says the chain of events caused by opening this page is depicted as a sequence diagram, right? The diagram was made as a GitHub markup file using Mermaid syntax. Now, this is actually what is being referred to as Mermaid syntax, right? So we are going to be writing this to follow the chain of events that we can find using this link, right? Now, this Mermaid syntax, it helps to generate the sequence diagram. The sequence diagram is what we can actually find here, right? So this is achieved using the Mermaid syntax that was given here. All right, so we are expected to, based on this link, right, the chain of events in this link, to create a Mermaid syntax that helps us generate a sequence diagram, right? So let's click on this link and see exactly what we have here. Okay, so here we can see these are the links. This is the page we have right here. When we come here and then we type in, let's say we type in a note, let's say we type in dev with Excel, and then we hit save. Dev with Excel gets saved here, right? So that is a chain of events whose Mermaid syntax we need to write. Okay, all right, so let's head into the code implementation. All right, going to the VS Code. Here is my VS Code, right? And here is a folder that I created for this. All right, so we are going to be starting with this part 0. So we simply just create a new folder. We call it part 0, right? So in this part 0, we are going to be creating new files, right? So let's head into that. All right, so before that, there are basically two extensions we need to download. Looking at the material here, we can see that here the Mermaid syntax was created using GitHub Markdown file, right? So you can actually use GitHub Markdown file to actually generate this Mermaid syntax. But in my own case, I didn't use this, right? So I found a way to use the Mermaid syntax directly in VS Code, right? So I am going to show us how that is done. All right, so this is VS Code, right? And to get that done, I will suggest we download two extensions. We install two extensions. One is the Mermaid preview. Mermaid supports this. Install this, and then I think we may also need to install live preview. I'm not sure about this, but it will not be bad if you have this live preview, right? So live preview, it helps to preview whatever code you have on your VS Code, right? As if it's being displayed on a browser. All right, so let's just go back to our code. All right, now to write the Mermaid syntax, we need to create a file with an extension of .md. All right, so let's create a file in this folder. So let's just call it, or let's call it first.md. All right, now this is where we are going to be writing our Mermaid syntax, but we are not submitting the syntax itself. Rather, we are going to be submitting the sequence diagram, the diagram generated using this Mermaid syntax itself. All right, so as we recall, we had a chain of events before we could get this done, right? We logged into this link here, right? and then we inserted a text in this input field, and then we hit the save key, and then this got displayed here. All right, so let's see how we can write that in the Mermaid syntax. All right, so the first thing we need to do after installing the both extensions that I mentioned, the first thing we need to do is we need to understand that every syntax we are going to be writing is going to be written in this triple backticks, right? So we have the opening backtick and we also have the closing backtick, right? All right. So after every backtick, after every starting backtick, we need to write Mermaid. So that's that. So every other code that is written here should be the Mermaid syntax. All right. So let's begin with that. So the first thing we need to do is we write sequence diagram, just as we can see in the material. Let's go back to the material and let's see how it's been done. All right, so here we have sequence diagram, we have participant browser, participant server. So let's just copy this part, right? And then let's paste them here. Let's save this and then let's click on this. Now, this icon shows up because we successfully downloaded the live preview, right? That's why I encourage that we download the live preview also. Now let's click on this and then let's see what we get. All right, so we can see this diagram, right? We have browser and we have server. All right, now we are not going to be using just these two. We also need to also get a participant called user, right? So let's just duplicate this and then let's change this browser to user. So we can see we have user, user, browser, browser, server, server. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we want to write a note, right, from the user to the browser. So we say user, then the hyphen, then the greater than sign. Then of course this is going to be giving us error while we generate this, right? But on successful completion of a syntax, this returns a meaningful diagram. So let's write browser here. So the next thing we need to type is let's write a note. Let's call it write note and click save. All right, so this is a sequence of the events, right? So after doing this, we can see we have it here, write note and click save. That's coming from the browser, right? So going to the next line, what we want to write is this. We want to write notes right to the browser, right? Now after this part, we want to write exactly what we need to be displayed in the diagram here, right? So we say browser captures the user input and prepares to send it to the server. So let's save this and see what we have. Okay, this is currently not going to work, right? So let's go to the next line and then let's type something else. Now we want to create something similar from user to browser here, right? But in this case, it's going to be from browser to the user. So we can just duplicate this. So we bring this down here, right? So here we change browser here to, I think, server, right? We change this user here first to browser and then change this browser to server. So let's save this. So we are having an error on line 9. It says click save, notes right to the browser. Okay, everything is going to work fine after we are done with this, right? Um okay, so the next thing we want to do, we need to remove this text here. And then we want to write the link which we need to click on in order to get to that part where we have the input field, right? So what I mean is this: we clicked on this link here to get to this page, right? So that's what we want to do next. So we are going to be writing that link. So we could just copy this link and then Just paste it here. So we have https example app slash notes. I think this is still okay. Okay, so after writing this, we can just add a text. We can just say with notes data. All right. So after doing this, the next thing we want to do is wait, let's comment on this first and see what happens. Okay, seems you are having some kind of error still. Okay, let's just remove this first and then let's see if you okay. So this is still showing up here. All right, so what we have here is not an error, but it's because we are yet to complete the entire syntax that is going to show us some meaningful diagram, right? And that's exactly what we want to do. Okay, all right. So after writing this part here, the next thing we want to do is after writing this part here, the next thing we want to do is we want to activate the server. So we simply just write activate server. So we are going to be activating the server and also we are going to be deactivating the server. So let me just duplicate this and then write deactivate server. So in between these two, what we want to do is we want to write another note and then we are going to write note write to server. We can see here that we have note write to browser here. That means the note is going to be coming from the side of the user to the browser. So here we are going to write note write to the server. So we can just put a piece of text and then say server receives the note and then saves it. Yes, the server receives, or we can just say server receives the note and saves it. I think this is okay for us to write. Server receives the note and saves it, or note data, whichever. Okay, so let's save this. At this point, this should generate a syntax for us. I want to believe. Okay, so I think let's just continue and then let's see how far this goes. So let's close this space here. Let's also close this space here. Okay, so having done this, there's something else we need to put in between the activate server and the deactivate server. So we want to write a note from the server to the browser, right? So we say server dash greater than sign in two places. Then we write browser and then with the colon we say http 302 redirect to, I think we want to put this redirect as a capital, redirect to slash. Here is going to redirect to this slash notes here, right? So we say slash notes. All right, so we deactivate the server, right? um let's save this, let's close this. I don't know why this is not rendering anymore. Okay, I think this is trying to point us to an error. It's saying notes write to the browser, or right of the browser, right of the browser. Let's confirm if we are doing the right thing. User browser. Let's write this browser in small letter because here we have browser in small letter. So let's just ensure that everything is as it is. Let's save this. Note write to the server, error on line 12. Let's check line 12. Let's change this to note right of server. Okay, all right. So our syntax didn't match. That was why this was not rendering properly initially, right? So basically, this is how we are going to be doing this. And then let's add something else after this deactivate server. Right now, we've been able to show, let's expand this. We've been able to show that the user clicks a link, right? The user writes a note and then save. That's the idea, right? From the user to the browser. Now in the browser, the user clicks on this link, right? And then the user the browser captures the user input and prepares to send it to the server. That's what happens here. And after that is done, the server receives the note and saves it, right? Now there's a redirect to the browser, which is this part here. All right, so the next thing we want to do is, in fact, we have a lot of syntax to actually write, right? So the idea is not really on writing the syntax as it were, but understanding how to write the syntax, right? So I have this syntax already written. I'm simply just going to copy and paste the remaining of them, right? So I have it written here. So I'm just going to copy what I have here. I'm just going to copy this and then paste it here. So I'm simply going to save this, right? So we can see that this is the entire sequence diagram, right? So when you study this diagram very well, it actually gives us the chain of events that happens from when we click on the link and then put in our text data, that's our notes data, and then send it through the browser to the server, right? So this is not what we are submitting. We are not submitting the syntax, but rather we are submitting this diagram. So what do we do? This diagram looks a bit dark. So I could just come here and then change the theme. Let's see if we can just change the theme to something light. Let's call this, let's use this. Okay, so I think this is fair enough, right? So I want to believe this is fair enough. So what we can do next is we can just make a screenshot of this. So I am going to use my tool here, the snip tool, to do a screenshot of this, right? So I'm simply just going to have a screenshot of this page and then copy. All right. So I have copied that. So after doing that, the next thing we need to do is let's paste it here. So it's named image.png. Now let's go to the exercise to see exactly what the name is or the title of this exercise. Now it's called new note diagram, right? So we could just call it new note diagram. So I'll simply just come here to edit this and then call it new note diagram, removing the white spaces, then diagram, right? All right, so this is exercise 0.4 concluded, right? So let's solve for exercise 0.5 and then 0.6. All right, so now we are not going to be taking time to rewrite this syntax just like I did for this exercise, right? But we are simply just going to come back here and then make some copy and paste, right? So let's just do some copy and paste since I already have the syntax. Now this is the syntax for the second exercise. I'll simply just copy this, and then in this first.md we replace everything we have here with the second syntax. So let's save this and then let's preview. So this is the sequence diagram for the second exercise, right? So the title here is single page app. So I'll just copy this text and then paste it here. Let's go back to copy it. Okay, I did make a screenshot of it. All right. So let's make a screenshot of it. So let's make it bigger. Let's make this bigger so as not to be struggling with viewing it. All right, so going back to the snip tool, let me click on new. Then we copy this image here. All right, so let's come back here and then let's paste this. Yes, pasted image.png. Then we go back here again and then we copy this single page app text and then we edit image.png and then we remove the white spaces here and we hit enter. All right, so exercise 0.5 is concluded, right? So just take your time to study this instruction, right? And then when you look at this diagram, you'll see that everything rhymes properly, right? So the next one is exercise 0.6. Okay, so let's read this. It says create a diagram depicting the situation where the user creates a new note using the single page version of the app, right? So also here I have the syntax, right? So there is no point writing all these things in this video anymore. The main thing is for us to know how to use Mermaid and to get the proper syntax for this exercise. All right, so we close this as well, and then we replace this entire syntax with the syntax for exercise 0.6. So let's save this and then let's preview it. All right, so this is the syntax, right, for exercise 0.6. So we screenshot this as well. We copy this. Let's minimize this and then let's paste it here. All right, so let's edit the name. Now, this is titled New Note in Single Page App. So we copy this and then we go back to VS Code. We edit this name and then we paste. So here we simply just do something like this. New note in single page app.png. So we hit enter. So now this works fine, right? So we can see that we have all three sequence diagrams, right, for the three exercises. So now we can safely close everything we have here. Now we need to remove this, or we simply just delete this file and then we push these three diagrams into the part 0 folder. So pushing this first, we have that there. Pushing this next, we have this here. Pushing this lastly, we have everything in the part 0, right? So I believe this is what we are expected to solve or do for the three exercises on the part 0 of the full stack open, right? So I hope this helps. I hope this exercise was helpful and everything done here was helpful, right? Now after we are through with part 0, then we begin with part 1, right? Now the way I structure this entire playlist is we are going to be solving each exercises for each part, right? So to solve for part 1, we are simply going to create a new file and then we call it part 1. Then here this contains our setup code for part 1, and then subsequently we have part 2, and then also we have part 3 down to part 13, I believe, depending on where we get to, right? So currently, if you look at the playlist, we have solutions to exercises up to part 3, right? And if you look at the folder structures properly, they begin from part 1, part 2, part 3, right? Now, including these parts, when we include this part 0, everything should look this way. All right, friends, so with this, we've come to the end of this exercise. So I'm simply going to delete all these parts so that this doesn't conflict since we did anything part 1 down to part 3, right? So this is what we have currently. All right, friends, once again, if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Bye.